Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eric Hayden with the Weather Service down in Morehead City. Thank you very much for joining us for this hurricane forum. I'm going to turn it over to Lance for the beginning stuff on Washington County. Here in a couple minutes after he talks, we're going to go over some of the logistics of the upcoming presentation. Really appreciate you joining us this afternoon for this discussion on hurricanes and hurricane preparedness. So Lance, you can take it away.
All right. Thank you, Eric, and thank you to everybody who's joined in this afternoon. I really appreciate everybody, whether you're a Washington County resident or just joining in because you missed another one. Glad to have you, and think that Eric's got a good event planned for us, a forum for our county and the upcoming storm season. I just really appreciate everybody joining in, and we'll have some links going out in probably a week or two with some, hurricane preparedness links. I've already sent a few out, but anything that's county specific that I get in the next few weeks in the preparation of hurricane season, we will definitely get it to those who got this invite. But just thank you to everybody who's joined in this afternoon. All right, Eric.
All right, Lance, thank you. And you can turn off your camera and mute it and kind of kick back and watch. And then as questions come in, definitely turn it back on, Lance, as we get toward the end. So we appreciate that introduction. Since this is virtual, I just want to kind of go over a couple things so that you know what to expect. We want you to ask us questions. So during the presentation, please, in the questions box or chat, it depends on how it appears on your computer, you can ask a question to Lance or I. I will probably take those all at the end. If I see something pop up and I can get to it, I will, but we'll probably go through the presentation and then do a Q&A at the end. In addition, we want to hear from you. I know that we're not in person for this particular talk, but you can raise your hand if you click on the raised hand feature. Let me just show you that. So if you click on this raised hand feature there, I will see that you've raised your hand. I will call on you. You'll unmute your mic and then you'll be able to speak. So we certainly want to hear your voice and anything that you have. As far as background noise, right now everybody is muted. So unless you raise your hand and I unmute you and then you unmute yourself, you don't have to worry about the background noise. So if you've got stuff going on in the background, don't worry about it. It's not going to distract us with that. One thing I do want to mention, in addition to the chat part, again, you should have a question dialogue like this. You should be able to ask a question through that. And just so that we test it, chat in there now. Let me know how the audio is, the visual, if you want to say hello and where you are in the county. We certainly want to hear from you for that. In the handout section, this presentation is attached as a PDF. If you have any internet issues, you have to step away. Perhaps you're just joining us and you may have to step away. Download the presentation and you can follow along if you have any issues, or you have that copy for you for down the road. And that will include all the links that we have for this presentation. So really appreciate you joining us. Today's topic is hurricane preparedness. It's the middle of June. Yes, we are into the midst of hurricane season, so we're going to certainly talk about that. Lynn, thank you for your comment. Everything's good on her end, so appreciate that feedback. I'm watching as we go. If we have any issues, we will certainly address those. So if you're not familiar with who we are, we're the National Weather Service office down in Newport, North Carolina. We are your Weather Service office for Washington County. So we cover the eastern quarter of North Carolina. You're kind of smack dab in the middle toward the northern part. So Plymouth, Cresswell, Roper, the whole county, we're your local office. So if you ever need anything from us, please reach out to us. The other parts of the state are covered by Raleigh, the central part of the state, and just to your north, the Wakefield office, located near Richmond, covers the northeast part of the state, just north of the Albemarle Sound. We are open 24/7. Much like a lot of you, some of us may have been working from home or doing different things over the last 15 months, but we never stopped working. We were always there. We have limited staffing on weekends and holidays and overnights. And then during storms like Isaias last year, or certainly Florence and Irene, Hurricane Matthew, we ramped staffing up. So this is a picture during Florence where we have a lot of our staffing in there. We cover 24/7, much like police, fire, and first responders. And again, we increase that staffing and flex it based on what's going on with the weather. In total, just over 20 people at the office itself, and usually 3 main shifts: a day shift, an evening shift and an overnight shift. And like police and fire and hospitals, we rotate through those shifts to ensure that the weather is covered, because we all know that emergencies don't just happen during the week and you get every holiday and weekend off. They can happen whenever. A couple key points of the webinar. I'm going to mention this over and over again. This is a key point. Our website, weather.gov/moreheadcity. All of the information we present today can be found on our website. Hurricane graphics, weather briefings, weather information. This is your local site. You don't need the HTTP, don't need the www. If you just remember weather.gov, that will go to the United States site, and you can click on Eastern North Carolina, or you can put a / Morehead City in there. Don't have a pen, can't write it down. Again, don't worry. In the handout section, you can download this PDF, and you'll receive a copy of it as well by tomorrow. So on our website itself, you can certainly add additional information or type in the zip code and see what's going on with the website itself. And you can enter your city or zip code and find more information for the forecast itself. And we're going to kind of dive down into the website and let you know some of the other features with regards to hurricane information here in a second. Social media, a big one for us. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and even more recently, Instagram. If you just search NWS for National Weather Service, Morehead City, you can find us. Our website is good. That's the basis for our dissemination of information. Social media is, we wave our hands and say, hey, Washington County, you need to pay attention to this. It's days in the future. This is something we're concerned with. So the example is a tweet during Florence talking about people not letting their guard down. Despite the category decreasing, it still was going to be an impactful storm. And on the right is a YouTube video. So we brief people like Lance and other county officials in the county itself, and we give a presentation on the upcoming weather. We record that part and post it to YouTube, so you can see the same information that the county officials are seeing, whether it's tropical system, winter storm, or severe weather. That is information for you. In the beginning, we mentioned now is the time to prepare because hurricane season is upon us. It's not a cliche. It's not just because hurricane season started June 1st. It's because it's happened. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of experience with hurricanes and tropical systems here in our neck of the woods. Just remember last year wasn't a huge impact, but we had Tropical Storm Arthur in May. This graphic shows that the frequency of hurricanes in tropical systems noted by the reds and yellows peaks about the middle of September. So it really, really ramps up as we get into August, and the months of August and September can be, traditionally that's the time of year that we can see storms peaking. With that said, we get them as early as May, and then when I add more storms, we get them as late as October and November. Sandy and also Matthew were later storms. So now is really the time to think about preparedness because we can get storms throughout the season. The peak itself coincides when the water is the warmest in the ocean, and that's why we tend to peak hurricane season tends to be into the early part of fall. As far as preparedness goes, our website, again, weather.gov/moreheadcity, and if you do /hurricaneprep, you can get a lot of information on the website itself. I'm going to hop out of the website or the presentation in a second and kind of show you some of this information I'm talking about. It's been a crazy 15 months for sure. I know a lot of you might not be able to go out to the store this weekend and get everything you need. That's okay. Small steps, a little bit at a time. So this weekend, I want you to consider getting that case of water because we all know that's the first thing that runs out at the store if we have a storm headed our way. Next weekend, you work on canned goods. You secure all those items at the store and you get those. The following weekend, what do you have in your safety kit? Do you have enough medicine? Do you have enough things that would, if you need to stay home for up to a week, that you have those materials on hand? So think baby steps. Don't think that you have to get this all at once because I know financially that's hard sometimes. Little steps each weekend as you go to the store, build your kit. If you need an idea of what to do, again, this website will certainly point you in the right direction. And generally speaking, we're talking food, water, medicine, anything you would need to be on your own for at least a week. We would say 3 days before, 3 days is better than 0 days, but try to aim for that week so that you're well prepared. If you decide to stay, that you'll have everything on hand that you need, and you don't have to rely on anything. So we mentioned our website for preparedness, also weather briefings. If you scroll to the bottom, here's our website on the left, lot of icons on the bottom, and one of them is weather hazard briefing. That is where we post our storm updates, hurricanes, tropical storms, severe weather, winter weather, anything big that's headed our way in the coming days, we will do a briefing on, and we will post that to our website itself. So before I get onto this, I want to jump out of the presentation and show you our website kind of an interactive way. So I'm going to hop out of the website itself. And at this point, any questions on this first part, please let me know. I will look at those in the chat. And while we do that, here's our website. So again, weather.gov /moreheadcity/MHX, or just click on Eastern North Carolina. If you scroll down, again, you can click anywhere on the map. If you just click on, click on the central part of Washington County, forecast will pop up. Your local airport up toward Edenton will tell you the current conditions. This is your 7-day forecast, a text forecast, and then this is your actual location in the county. So remember, I just clicked on the central part of Washington County, but let's say I live in Plymouth. I'm going to zoom into Plymouth, click on Plymouth. The forecast will change slightly. It's wherever that green box is, that is your location. So let's say you live in Plymouth, you zoom into the map, that's where I am, and I would bookmark this. This is your one-stop shop for forecast for the next 7 days. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's an hourly weather graph, the radar, and graphical forecast as well. So a lot of good information on that page. And this would be your local forecast, kind of an example of that. So I'm going to go back a couple steps to the main page. There's 2 things I want you to do. Bookmark your local city forecast, save that, and then save this main page. Then just remember, scroll down for anything else you need big picture. I mentioned the briefing. Here it is on the right-hand side of the page. If you're curious about river levels across Eastern North Carolina, here's the link for that. You want to take a spotter class with that, here's the link for that. If you want anything tropical, preparedness, Hurricane Center graphics, which I'm going to show you coming up, anything tropical related, click on this tropical icon and it will be there. And I would probably suggest just to bookmark this as well. So on our tropical page, a lot of information, including social media, radar, and satellite. Here's our preparedness link. So that is at the top. A lot of good preparedness information, videos and handouts from the Red Cross as well. And at the top of that, this Eastern North Carolina preparedness page, that is modeled after Hurricane Awareness Week. We've made this, it's a local page. If you need any information on how to prepare, we follow the different topics and days of the week. So determining your risk, know your zone campaign, whether you might need to evacuate in the county. There's different zones in the county itself, insurance information, how to strengthen your home, a lot of really, really good stuff. I'll pick on Know Your Zone. There's a information and website from North Carolina Emergency Management, and that will have more county-specific information as well by just clicking on Know Your Zone. So again, weather.gov /moreheadcity, and at the bottom, click on that tropical page. I just went over a ton of information. There is no test on it. I don't expect you to remember it all. You have the handout. Again, it's a handout section. It's a PDF. And you're going to have my email because I'm going to put it at the end of this presentation, and I'm going to email you these links in terms of the PDF. So if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to shoot me an email, and we can certainly walk you through that. So at this point, I don't see any questions in the chat, so we'll keep going. The next couple slides are going to talk about, okay, Eric, why should I listen to you or the Hurricane Center? I get stuff on my phone, I see stuff on social media. Maybe I'll just pay attention to what my neighbor says or what my friend says. Trust 175 years of experience. That's the example on the right. This is your hurricane graphic that you're probably all familiar with, the forecast cone. This is an official source of information. This is what I want you to pay attention to, not this. This is what we call spaghetti models. I'm always hungry, so we're not talking about spaghetti, the food. But what we're talking about is something that you might see like this. These are various tracks that a storm can take based on the model. So where they're real close together like this, high confidence. Where they're spread out like this, lower confidence. But we don't want you looking at this stuff because your eyes are drawn toward, is it going to hit me or not? And like this example in Florida, you might say, hey, it's going to hit me because of this one possibility. We look at all of this and we make this graphic on the right. So we're certainly looking at that information, but we add the human experience, and we have statistically proven to be a lot more accurate. And I say we as the Weather Service, and that includes the National Hurricane Center. Of course, I need to say that, right? I'm a meteorologist with the Weather Service. Why wouldn't I say we had the best stuff? I'm going to prove it to you. This is how far we've come over the last 20 to 30 years. This example is 1999 when we had Hurricane Floyd, 2019 where we had Hurricane Dorian. This graphic itself is the difference in 3-day forecast track error. What does that mean? That means back in 1999, I would tell Washington County or Lance, if we had a storm approaching 3 days out, the most accurate thing I could tell him based on the science in 1999 was the center could pass somewhere over Southeast Virginia, anywhere in the Carolinas or Eastern Georgia. That's 1999. 3 days out, that's as good as we were. Now, in the last 20 years, the advances in the sciences, we can tell somebody like Lance or anybody, any official in Washington County, in 2019, the center of the storm is most likely to impact Southeast Virginia. So our forecast error has really, really gotten small. So we've done a really, really good job in terms of forecasting where the storm will go. And I'll talk about some things we're still working on. But to show you some other examples, this is a graph showing error and also consistency. So it would be great to get it right, but it's really good to be able to get it right and to be consistent. So it doesn't help you folks in the county for me to say it's going to be here or there and do the windshield wiper effect back and forth. It's better to be consistent and maybe slowly trend to the south or slowly trend to the west or what have you. So on this graphic, on the x-axis, the bottom is consistency. So you want to be in this lower left corner because you're very, very consistent. And on the y-axis is track error. And again, you want to be toward this lower left because you're consistent and you have the least amount of error. The closer you get to the upper right of this graphic, you're more inconsistent and you have higher error. So again, we want to be this left, bottom left portion. And that's where the NHC dot is. That stands for the National Hurricane Center. I get questions about the European model. That's this dot here. The American model, which is this dot here, and then sometimes the UK Met. So the models are toward the upper right. So I'm smiling because Miss Ann Keys was teasing me in the chat about the best meteorologists around. So I appreciate that. She said it was me. You know, there's no contest, but I do appreciate a vote for that. So Miss Ann, I like that. That did make me chuckle. So the Hurricane Center is the best resource. Again, that's official information, and you can help us in the community. You see stuff on Facebook, you see stuff on social media. It can be very powerful either way. We have certainly seen that. Use that power for good and share official sources. Does it mean we'll never get it wrong? Certainly not. Does it mean that you have men and women that are working their butts off down in Newport, just down the road from you, that are trying their very best? Yes. So please share that information with everybody across the county. A couple other graphics, then I'm going to go into the different impacts that a storm can produce. This is Hurricane Laura last year on the Gulf Coast, and it's talking about the difference in storm surge. And I want you to think about this if you live along the Albemarle Sound and with regards to storm track. So this graphic on the right is the actual track. So this is the pink. This is actually where Laura made landfall, and that's the track of the storm itself. The Hurricane Center did a simulation and said, what happens if it changed 20 miles to the west or to the left? And that's what this blue line indicates. 20 miles is nothing, right? I mean, that's just not a huge change. What would happen? So in this simulation, if the track was on this blue line, this light salmon color shading would have 5 to 10 feet more of storm surge based on a little wobble to the left. This red shading across southern Louisiana would have a 10 to 15 foot higher storm surge by just a wobble to the left. Anywhere to the right of a storm track is very vulnerable to storm surge, near and to the immediate right of the storm track. We don't know that until the hours and minutes before landfall. So when you're making those preparedness plans and the emergency manager or whoever's giving you that information in the county talks about evacuations, take those serious. We plan on a worst case scenario to take into account those wobbles. And remember that no two storms are alike. Please don't say, hey, in Florence, I didn't see any flooding, or I didn't see any storm surge on the Albemarle Sound, so I should be okay. It depends on storm track, it depends on size and speed and a whole bunch of information, and we take that into account. And we'll talk about that during the storm surge section. But the point of emphasis with that is, although we're becoming more accurate, although it is a very good forecast, it can still be in that forecast cone, and a slight shift left or west, left or right at the last second can make all the difference in the world. So please take the information very serious. I mentioned in the beginning our website, weather.gov/moreheadcity. Also a good website to remember is hurricanes.gov. That's the Hurricane Center down in Miami, Florida. To simplify things, if you just remember our website, you go to the bottom, click on tropical, you can get local information like our briefing and preparedness, and you can get all these graphics. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. We're together, we're all one weather service, but we wanted to make sure it's in one place if you didn't want to remember two sites. I put two at the top. We'll leave that up to you to decide. This graphic is one that you might not be familiar with. It's called the Tropical Weather Outlook. It's not the forecast cone. It might not be something you see on the local weather, but it's issued 4 times a day, and it's a heads up. This is something I would look at every couple mornings. This is a general overview. Are we going to get tropical weather over the next week or not? And this shows you low, medium, and high percent chance for storms forming, and also shows you current storms. So if there's an actual storm out there, it will show you on this tropical outlook. Really, really good stuff to kind of give you a heads up for the next 5 days in terms of tropics. Now this one I'm sure you're familiar with, the forecast cone, whether it's through the local news, whether it's through the briefings, you see some form of this. This is where we actually think the center of the storm will track. It represents the most probable path for the storm. It does not say anything about the impacts. This is just where we think the center of the storm will go, somewhere in this cone. A couple things to point out. Notice it's kind of really skinny. It's narrow compared to past years. It has nothing to do with the storm size. It's based on statistics. We keep getting better, so the path keeps shrinking. 2/3 of the time, the center of the storm is going to go in this path, and recently we've been very, very accurate. 1/3 of the time, it could be out of the path, to account for error. So keep that in mind. And along those regards, this is not I'm in the path, I'm at risk. I'm not in the path, I'm not at risk. This is not that. This is just for the center of the storm. And we all know a hurricane is not a dot on the map. We live in Washington County, and the center of Florence hit down toward Wrightsville Beach, but we were still impacted, right? So keep that in mind. And it shows it on this graphic. This is the center of the storm, most likely path. This is Florence, and notice this wind field on this particular image. The orange shading is the tropical storm force winds. They extend well beyond the center, well beyond the path. So impacts occur hundreds of miles away from the center. So if you're anywhere near this path, since it's just the center, please pay attention to this. So for us, it's roughly anywhere up and down the East Coast. You should be paying attention, not just, hey, I'm on the edge of the path, I don't have to worry about it. If you're anywhere close to that, you certainly need to be paying attention. Some other graphics that you might not be as familiar with. I know you know the path one, but we send these out in briefings. They show them on the Weather Channel sometimes. I'm not sure about local news, but emergency managers and county officials really like this one. It is the earliest arrival of tropical storm force winds. Fancy term for what is the worst case scenario when 39-mile-per-hour winds will get here. Why did we pick that value? That's what a lot of officials make their decisions on in terms of evacuation time. And you can use this as well. when do I need to complete my plans around the house, get everything secure, or if I'm going to leave the area, when do I need to do that by? This is it. This is your reasonable worst case scenario. So in this case of Florence, it says Wednesday, 8 p.m. by the coast. I would say sometime Wednesday night, giving us a little bit more of a cushion as well. So that's a real good, useful graphic for knowing when to complete your plans. If you've completed your plans by the earliest reasonable time, you're going to be in good shape. If you just want to know, hey, Eric, when is it going to get here? That's what the most likely time frame is. This is a graphic from Tropical Storm Arthur last year. Stayed just off our coast. And again, in this example, Monday morning at 8 a.m. for Washington County, I would say, hey, the most likely time for those winds to get here would be sometime Monday morning. So those are on our briefings. Those are on the website. Really good information to get that you may not get from the local news. I don't know if they might show it sometimes, but it's a little more in depth, so they might not have time to show all that information. So we are just shy of 3 o'clock. We're doing real well. If you've got any questions, comments, anything going wrong with the audio visual, I haven't heard anything, so I think we're in good shape. Please put that in the questions window. The last part of this talk is going to go on impacts. I talked about, please remember our website, weather.gov/moreheadcity. And the other thing I really want you to remember is this: do not focus on just the category of the storm. So raise your hand at home, since I can't see you. How many times have you said or heard a neighbor, friend, coworker say, I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 2. I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 3. Their whole decision process is all about this number. Hey, if it's a 4, I'm out of here. If it's just a 1, I'm not gonna worry about it. We've said that, we've heard it. This scale is only related to wind. It says nothing about rainfall. It doesn't say that the storm's going to sit over you for 2 days. It doesn't say that it's 500 miles across. It's a very useful scale for wind. Don't ignore it. It's part of the puzzle, part of your toolkit. If it's a high number on this scale, it means we're going to get a lot of wind. But please don't use it as the only decision making for what you should do. It is only related to wind. There's so many impacts that can occur with a storm, and a lot of it comes down to the size, the speed, and also where it hits. And we go over all that information in our briefing. So don't just say it's a 2, I'm staying, a 3, I'm leaving. Look at the number and say, okay, that'll tell me what the wind is. What else is going to happen? Again, I like to back stuff up with statistics. Unfortunately, in the United States, including the Carolinas, we've had a lot of experience with this. 2010 to 2019, we've had a lot of just category 1s. I say just a 1 because I've heard it over and over again. I didn't think it was going to be bad because Florence was just a 1. Almost 200 people have died directly, over $100 billion in damage. And I need to make this font bigger. Do you remember Irene? Do you remember Hermine? Just a tropical storm. Do you remember Matthew? Do you remember Florence? How about Dorian? So some of these in the county, Dorian probably one of them, maybe not as much of an impact, but go tell somebody down in Ocracoke, Hyde County, hey, Dorian was just a 1. Why did you guys have so many issues down there? Re-emphasizing the category is only about the wind. Please pay attention to this. And it's not something you have to dive down into the website. Oh man, I gotta figure out how much rain we're gonna have and the storm surge and rip currents. We will tell you. That information will be in our briefing. So notice all the stuff at the top of the list is water related. There's a reason for that. Notice that wind is toward the bottom of the list. There's a reason for that by design as well. The reason, water is what kills. This graphic is something I have shown year after year after year. My predecessor, John Cole, I'm sure he showed it as well. This is 1963 to 2012. About half the deaths during that time were storm surge related. About a third were rainfall. When you add in surf and offshore, about 90% were water related. And if you look really carefully, the smaller box here is wind, less than 10%. Could somebody die because of a fallen tree on a house or car? Very tragic. Can it happen? Yes. But during that stretch, 63 to 2012, it was way more likely that you would die because of water. Eric, it's 2021. Can you show us newer statistics? Yes, yes, yes. So 2016 to 2018, the graph on the left, 83% of deaths were water related. Notice a theme. The 60s through 2012, water, water, water. 2016 to 2018, water, water, water. Eric, what can I do? You know, this is a big deal. It's all about communication. You're at your church, your community, your local neighbor, talk about this. We have made huge improvements on storm surge. Only 4% of these deaths now are storm surge related. Before it was 50, right? So we've made leaps and bounds, strides with storm surge. Now we need your help, and we've needed your help because this has been an issue for a while now with regards to water. Of those deaths in the last couple of years, more than half were vehicle related. So please pass on the message of turn around, don't drown, don't drive around barricades, don't drive through flooded roads. We have many rural parts of our county. You're driving at night, it's dark, there's water across the road, turn around and go another way. You don't know how fast that water is flowing. You don't know how strong it is. And you don't know if the road is washed out. So it might only look like a foot or two of water. I can get through that. I've got a truck, I've got four-wheel drive. If the road's not there anymore because it's washed out, you're not getting through that. So please, please, please pass that message. Those are preventable deaths. They occur in vehicles from folks going places that they shouldn't be going. So we bring it from 1963 to last year, 47 deaths in the United States, 31 were water related. So please, again, talk about the impacts of water. Storm surge, especially for you folks on the sound itself, and then also for most of the county, it's flash flood related deaths that we would be concerned with, and especially in vehicles. So we are a science-based organization. To re-emphasize our messaging, this is a slide for you. This is the forecast for Florence, 5 days out. This is a track, the squiggly little line, where it actually went. 20 to 30 inches was predicted across southeast North Carolina. The example on the left is the forecast, and this is when Florence was a couple hundred miles away. The example on the right is what actually happened. So predicted on the left, actual on the right. Great forecast. As a science-based organization, are we going to try to improve each year? 100%. But it's going to be hard to improve much more than that. Our margin of improvement for track and things like this is shrinking. During that storm, 16 to 17 people that died, despite that awesome forecast, were in vehicles. So please, please, please help us hammer that home. And that's not just a hurricane thing, that's a rain thing. Next time we get heavy rain in the county and you've got a flash flood warning on your phone, or you see us sending out a briefing, doesn't mean to panic and you can't go outside. Just be smart about it. If you see water across the road, don't cross it, take the long way home, or wait. So we talked about rainfall flooding. We can have issues in the county, especially along the sound itself. To our south, we saw really bad storm surge flooding in New Bern, over 8 feet with Florence. And our friends to the south and east saw bad storm surge with Dorian. Again, Dorian was a track near our coastline, but as the storm left, the water sloshed back to the east on the eastern end of the Pamlico Sound. And that 4 to 7 feet is impressive, but it happened in 10-15 minutes. So it came up very, very quickly. So that's where we get issues with storm surge. If you live in a vulnerable area, again, we're talking about the northern part of the county with regards to storm surge, we will put out watches and warnings. The example on the left is a watch. The example on the right is a warning. We do this when we think the water could be 3 feet or higher above normally dry ground. What above normally dry ground? What does that mean? That means I live on the Albemarle. I'm a low-lying area. I live by the water. Normal dry areas and those low spots will have more than 3 feet of water in them, and that's what we use as a basis for that. And then when we get really into the thick of a storm, you have access to these maps. They're on the Hurricane Center. We put them in our briefings. We'll do a link to them. This is a potential storm surge with Florence. This is the Neuse River, so you guys are kind of on the edge of this map. but this is the Neuse River and the edge of the Pamlico Sound. And up the Neuse River, the forecast was greater than 9 feet of storm surge. That is our 10% chance, our reasonable worst case. Not everyone will see these values on this map, but for county officials, this is what they look at, and this is what they make their decisions on. A lot of you may not see this on a given storm, which is good, but this is taking into account last minute wobbles, because again, if you're this point and it hits to your right, you might not have as much storm surge, whereas if it hits just to your left, you have a lot of storm surge. And those decisions and knowing doesn't happen but just hours before landfall. On the right is what actually happened, and unfortunately, again, we did have greater than 9 feet of storm surge up the Neuse River and a lot of surge eastern part of the counties as well. Starting last year and continuing this year, in addition to the map I just showed you and the storm surge watch and warning, there will be a bigger graphic that will show the potential storm surge. I think this is from EIS last year. I'm not quite sure, but it shows the Albemarle and kind of a zoomed out perspective for the media to use kind of on a quick way on storm surge. A couple more impacts, and then we're going to turn it over to you. Again, anytime you have a question, something doesn't make sense, you want to comment, just comment in the questions tab, and I will be sure to get those. So you're inland, I know that, but I want you to be aware about beach safety, because we certainly enjoy the beach. You're not very far from the Outer Banks. And then down here, the Emerald Isle, Crystal Coast area is not far from where I am. The second deadliest storm 2 years ago was Lorenzo. I remember Dorian. I remember Florence the year before. We had Arthur last year. Lorenzo. Do you remember Lorenzo? I certainly do not. And that's because the track was way out to sea, 2,000 miles away. But at one point, this magenta shading, it was the northernmost Category 5 in the North Atlantic hurricane, very, very strong. So it was 2,000 miles away, but it was a really nice weekend or stretch of weather, and we had a high population at the beach. And a lot of the wave energy from distant storms can make it to our coastline. And unfortunately, we had 8 rip current fatalities along the East Coast and 4 in North Carolina alone. So any tropical cyclone can produce dangerous conditions at our beach, whether they hit us or not. So I was at a recent class and I got a question from a young gentleman and they asked, what is the farthest away you can have impacts from a storm? I said, well, that's a really good question. And my initial answer was, a storm could be 300-500 miles across. So you could be many hundreds of miles away from the storm center and get impacted. I thought that was a pretty good answer. But then it dawned on me, I said, well, that is for a storm that hits by us. You can be thousands of miles away and be impacted by a storm at the beach because of dangerous surf. So we include this information on our website and also our briefings. And again, folks aren't swimming in the midst of the storm. This is the family that goes to the beach. The storm's not, today's Tuesday, right? So the storm's not going to hit till this weekend. Tomorrow is their last beach day, and they're just going to try to sneak something in. It's sunny, light winds. It doesn't look ominous, but there still can be a lot of energy with those waves arriving from distant storms. And with our proximity to the beach, I want you to reiterate this with folks going to the beach, not just during tropical season, but if there's a high risk of rip currents, you should stay out of the water. You're ankle deep. You don't need to be, you can get your toes wet, but don't be out there swimming in the water. If you're going to choose to go to the beach, try to pick one with a lifeguard. I've got 3 younger kids, 13, 10, and 7. Busy times at the Hayden household. We pay to park. We deal with the crowds, whatever we need to do. I would love to be at the section of the beach where there's not a lot of people. However, I want to be where that lifeguard is. They are there to help you, and they are also there to tell you, hey, it's not a good idea to swim in that spot. And you'll also see the flags that are up. So please respect the flags and the conditions that are occurring at the beach. That is actually our biggest killer in terms of the Carolinas year to year. Usually it's rip currents, or sometimes it goes back and forth with flooding. So, hurricanes, tornadoes, all gets a lot of notoriety, but rip currents are a huge danger in our area. We're getting down toward the bottom. Wind threat. This is what part of my neighborhood looked like during Florence. We certainly had the strong winds, especially down toward our way. I know you were on the edge of some of the stronger winds, but they can, really disrupt things. Power lines down, communication lines, and trees can cause issues with evacuation routes, and certainly issues with that. And wind is to be respected. I mentioned at the beginning, if you're just joining us, the category will tell you what the wind is, but it doesn't tell you everything about the storm. So I love this example. We've been doing this a couple years now. It's the Arthur versus Irene. So Hurricane Arthur, 2014. The years are flying by. I can't believe it's been 7 years since that now. It was a Category 2 landfall between Beaufort and Cape Lookout. Fast-moving storm, small storm. So up here in Washington County, tropical storm force winds. Most of the impacts were down to the east of us, toward the Outer Banks. A lot of soundside flooding issues, Hatteras Island, Ocracoke, even a little bit up in Manio. But again, wind, rain-wise, not a huge deal in the county from what I can remember. And it was a Category 2 storm. Irene was a 1, so we really shouldn't worry about it, right? Bigger impact in the county. Similar landfall, no tricks. It was by Beaufort, Cape Lookout. A lot of the wind, because it was a larger storm and a slow-moving storm, was all over the area. So while the strongest winds were the western part of the Pamlico Sound, 90 to 115, here across the county, strong tropical storm to almost hurricane force winds, especially down toward the southeast part of the county. And then we had a lot of rainfall as well. I don't remember the exact specific impact in Washington County per se. I was not here in 2011, so if anybody has stories or anything to share, but I know overall for Eastern North Carolina, much bigger impact with that storm. So please remember that it's not just the category, it's all the impacts that can occur. Last one I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to turn it over to you. Tornado threat. Just because the cyclone is spinning, and you've seen this even with Claudette, it wasn't a big impact for us Sunday night and Monday, but we were concerned with tornadoes because the system's turning, so it doesn't take much to spin up a tornado. We saw it up in our area with Hermine, and so it doesn't have to be a hurricane. It can be any tropical system, from a depression to a storm to all the way up to a hurricane. These are images from Dorian, Emerald Isle. The point of emphasis with this is well away from the center. This is more than a half day before the center was even by the coast. We saw that first outer rain band move in, and it produced a tornado. So you're in Washington County. We get a landfall down by Wilmington, and hey, it's moving up toward Raleigh. We don't have to worry about it. No. You can get heavy rain and tornadoes well away from the center. This is a good point of emphasis up to you. No official tornadoes up your way that I'm aware of for Florence, but we had landfall was down by Wrightsville Beach. We had some near you, and then all the way up in Richmond, Virginia, hundreds of miles away. Days later, because of that rotation, they saw tornadoes. So tornadoes have produced enhanced areas of damage. I just want you to keep this in mind. So even if the storm is far from you, have your phone ready, have your NOAA weather radio ready. I've got one on standby. It certainly woke me up the other morning when the tropical storm warning went out for the coast. So have your weather radio, have the batteries in it, plugged in, your phone ready. You're probably already paying attention if there's some type of tropical system near us, but because they can produce enhanced areas of damage, just be ready to seek that shelter on the lowest level of your home away from windows and be ready to do that. The last 2 slides are about indirect fatalities. We're going to close with this because we're always trying to do better. We messaged storm surge really well. Loss of life has come down. We're really hammering the flooding deaths. We're trying to improve that with vehicles. We haven't made a ton of progress there. The last one we're talking about are indirect fatalities. So Laura last year, big storm in the Gulf, unfortunately killed 7 folks. That's pretty low for a storm of that magnitude directly, but over 30 people died indirectly. And what do you mean an indirect death? Health issue because of the storm, falling off of a ladder because they're doing storm cleanup, or carbon monoxide. 16 people died because of carbon monoxide. Historically, storm surge was our biggie, but in the last 4 years, we've lost more people because of carbon monoxide than because of storm surge. So you prepare for the storm, you get your kit, you evacuate, you choose to stay, whatever you choose to do, it's not over until it's over. So the storm has passed. Now you're cleaning up your yard. Be safe on ladders. Be safe with stuff you're using. You have a generator, great. Know how to use it. You don't want to use it inside. You don't want it anywhere near your house. If the wind is blowing, you know, and you have fumes coming to your house, that's not a good thing. You need a smoke detector in your home. You should have that already in every room. Get one that has a CO2, you know, alarm on it, carbon monoxide. It's a silent killer. You're not going to smell it. You're not going to know it. And that's just a general good thing to have. In addition to your smoke detector, get one that's either CO2 capable, or get a separate one that's just CO2 as well. And I'm a weather expert, and that's a loose term. So this is still new to me, talking about carbon monoxide and that. So I know we've got some first responders, and we've got some people with a lot more experience than me. So comment in the questions, speak up when we're going to turn it over to you. And if you've got more to say about that, please do so, because we're trying to improve on that. And unfortunately, beyond carbon monoxide, heart attacks, power issues, you know, our elderly and older population is more vulnerable to being without power, to having health issues and needing power and things of that nature. So indirectly, more than about 60% of those folks that have died through 2012 were greater than 60, because again, all those other issues, you know, you're in dire straits without power, in a bad situation. We need to help our folks above 60 as well. So that is it. I'm gonna make sure you're unmuted, Lance, unless you needed to chime in on some of these questions. That is my email for everybody that signed up. If you haven't downloaded the PDF of the talk now, I will email it out by tomorrow. I'm back in the office tomorrow, so I will certainly do that. At this point, it's your turn. I don't see any questions. Lynn and Miss Ann gave some good comments, but if you have a question, please, you know, or comment, put it in the questions part. If you're a brave soul and you'd rather ask a question, raise your hand. I will call on you. Veronica, I appreciate the feedback on that. She mentioned it's a good refresher. And it is always good to talk about preparedness, because we learn new things. And, you know, it's like riding a bike. We remember a lot of it, but it's good to kind of put the wheels in motion to remember. So at this time, I'll take any questions. And Lance, if you want to follow up on anything, you can, you're unmuted, but you can turn your camera back on and do so. Otherwise, we will wrap up. I'll not share the screen anymore, so it'll just be us on camera. Do we have any brave souls? I'm looking to see if we've got any hands raised by anybody that wants to speak. And what will happen is, if a lot of the computers now have mics, and if you have the ability to say something microphone wise, raise your hand. I will call on you and unmute it, or you can put it in the chat. So anything you want to wrap up with, Lance, because I don't see any coming in. We'll give it another minute, and then we'll end it if not.
Well, I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you for spending the time, and those of y'all that listened in today, taking the time to hear what Eric had to say. Not so much what I had to say. I didn't have a whole lot to say, but I will definitely get any handouts, get some lists. If anybody wants anything in particular, feel free. I think everybody's got my email by now. You know, you can email me, or you can call me, or call the office, and we'll put together some packet of information. It's hard to send packets of information to everybody, but you know, any dire information will definitely be closer to when a storm's coming out. We have the HyperReach system fully functional. We've got plenty of minutes to be able to send out messages on that now. We got that worked out last year. Got more minutes, and we share it between other counties. So that's a wonderful thing, wonderful tool for us to be able to have. If anybody is not registered for HyperReach, contact us and give us your number. We'll get you registered, or show you how to get registered in the system. But thank you everybody for joining in.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us, Lance. These are the discussions we need to have, because the communication is what we're really trying to continue to improve. Veronica mentioned, relying on these forecasts at City Hall. So a lot of folks in the county using these forecasts, and we're all on the same team. We're in your community working to protect the people of Washington County. So we'll wrap up at this point, Lance. I don't see any questions. I really appreciate the comments, Lynn, Miss Ann, Veronica. Appreciate that. And if somebody couldn't attend, a friend, a neighbor, coworker, they wanted to, or maybe they weren't aware of this, please forward on my email. It will be sent out by tomorrow. Knock on wood, the technology looks like it worked okay. So I will post it to YouTube. Everything is shareable, so you'll be able to send them that link so they can see this presentation. So good seeing you, Lance, and I hope to see everybody in the county here in the coming months during good weather, not during any hurricanes.
You're a true professional. Thank you.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Thank you.